When we take a look at the skeletal system, you'll find that in an adult, we have around about 206 bones. If we take a look at a newborn, we'll find that they have about 300 bones. Now, why is this the case? Have a think. Well, firstly, a lot of those bones aren't actually bones, but more cartilage, more bendy, less likely to break, more malleable, and many of them are not fused together. An example of this can be the bones of the skull, right? We know that if the bones of a baby's skull were fused together, there's no way it would make it out of that birthing canal. So luckily those bones are not fused so that when Bub's head moves through the birthing canal, those bones can actually shift and move and overlap to get out. But if we just focus on an adult's bone numbers and have a look at predominantly why we have these bones, what is the function of having a skeletal system? Well, let's take a look. Firstly, we know that we have a skeletal system in order to protect us. So that's the first function, protection. Now, what is it protecting? Well, it's protecting underlying structures, right? Underlying structures. Now, that's not always the case, but if you think of things, bones like the skull, it's protecting the brain, the sternum and the rib cage is protecting the heart and the lungs, for example. So even your long bones are protecting the bone marrow and the stem cells deep inside that make blood, it's protecting those as well. So protection is an important function of bone. Another is storage. What are bones storing? Well, bones store important minerals. These minerals are calcium and phosphate. Now, calcium and phosphate are really important. They are what makes bone hard. Okay, it makes bone hard. If you were to remove all the calcium and phosphate from bone, it starts to become really bendy. Really bendy. And you can do this. This is an experiment you can do by taking bone, let's just say a cooked chicken bone, or a chicken bone, and putting it into vinegar. Put it overnight. Take it out, the bone becomes very bendy and rubbery. It's because the vinegar pulls out the calcium and the phosphate. Now, you can do something else where you take the bone and you bake it in the oven. That leaves only calcium and phosphate, and the bone becomes very hard and brittle. So the other substance that's in bone isn't just calcium and phosphate, but it's also all the other substances, all the cells and the gels and the fibers that are present as well. Because remember, bone is connective tissue. Now, why is bone storing this calcium and phosphate? Well, one, it makes it nice and hard and more difficult to break and very strong, but the reason why is because calcium and phosphate are required for a huge range of physiological functions. So this includes muscle contraction, energy consumption, neurons firing, and this is just to name a few. So it's storing those important minerals. Another is support. Support. So our skeletal system is obviously supporting a couple of things. One is it's supporting our weight. If we didn't have bones, due to our mass, we'll just collapse on the floor. We'll just be a big bag of muscles and fluid, basically. But it supports our weight and also allows for something for our muscles to attach to. And then what this actually brings us to is another function, which is that of movement. And while bones don't directly move us, it's their attachment to muscles that allows for us to move. Particularly conscious movement. And then finally, blood cell formation. Now, blood cell formation actually occurs inside bone, inside the bone marrow. Every single day, you are making millions upon millions of red blood cells. In actual fact, every second, you are making 1 million new red blood cells. And all of this is occurring inside of the bone marrow of your bones. Now, as a baby, it happens in your long bones. So like your femur, for example. This is where it happens for babies and newborns. But for an adult, this happens in our flat bones, like our skulls and our sternum. And so these are the 5 major functions of the skeletal system.